Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to cover the Morpher Modifier and how we can use it to create something like this. So basically we are going to start first of all by creating the shape itself, the basic shape, and then we're going to apply the Morpher Modifier in order to get these kind of different sizes in the openings. So let's start first of all by creating a new plane. So I will start by this plane and I'm going to add the number of segments that I want for the length and the width. Let's say I'll go to modify and then I'll make the size 10,000 by 10,000 millimeters with 40 by 40 segments. Again, this is all depending on what you need. Now to create the form itself, I'm going to add edit poly. And in this edit poly, I will go to vertex and I will start moving the vertices around. Now, if I move this vertex, as you can see, it's moving the vertex itself only, but it's not affecting anything around it. And this is going to take forever. That's why there is something called soft selection. If you open soft selection, you'll see these colors start to appear and you can always increase the area that will be affected by your soft selection. Now what soft selection does is if you move the same vertex, it will stretch the other vertices with it. So it will give you this kind of curvature in the model that you're using. Now using this method, let's say I'll go to this point and then I will increase the fall off to cover this kind of area. I'll move the same vertex which is in the corner, but I'm going to get this kind of effect. Let me rotate it so you can see it from the side. Okay, only by moving this vertex, but because I have soft selection on and I have the fall off feature is open or increased. I'll do the same thing here. I'll take maybe, let's say, this vertex. Again, I have my fall off area as I want, and I'll start moving this up. So now, as you can see, I have this kind of shape. You can play around with it depending on what you prefer until you reach the kind of result that you want. So let's say this is what I want. Maybe I'll just take these two areas as well and I'll move them a little bit. So this is my final outcome. Now I have my basic form, but I don't want the shapes here. I don't want the pattern to be squares. I want them to be in any other way. So I'm going to use generate topology. How to use generate topology? I already have edit poly on. So I'll go here to modeling and then from polygon modeling, I'll open generate topology window. The window now is open. I can select the pattern that I want. So for example, I'll go with tiles, it will give me this kind of effect, or maybe I'll go with this shape and so on. So you can select the pattern that you want. And as we've mentioned in the generate topology class, that some of them will have other requirements. You cannot just have edit poly. I'll have, for example, for this, to select one edge. So if I go to edge and select one of the edges, I can close soft selection, I don't need it. So I've selected one of the edges. Now if I click on the hive pattern, it will be applied. Okay, the same thing goes for this one. It says requires one edge to be selected for the direction of the edge. So if I select one edge as I have right now, it will be in this direction. If I select something like this, it will be in the other direction. And you can select any kind of pattern you prefer to use. Okay, so now I have my pattern ready. And what I want to do in this case, I want to go to polygon to create the openings. I'll select all these openings and I'm going to use inset tool to inset. But when you're insetting, I don't want the inset to cover the whole object as a group. I want it to be by polygon for each polygon separately. And one thing to keep in mind is that you need to here make sure that you're not going over, so you don't have an overlap in these polygons, so you don't have any issues later. So let's say I'll have something like this. This is my edit poly, the first one. And from here, I'm going to click on delete to delete the polygon that I have. Now I'm going to add another edit poly. And in this one, I'm going to the borders that I've already created. So Control A to select all the borders, Alt and remove this border. Okay, now I'm going to go to scale and I'm going to scale them down. Okay, as much as you want. So this is the final result. So now I have these two. If I click on yes, this is the first stage and then this is the second one. Now how to use Morpher Modifier. I'll select this and then I will add Morpher. I need to, in the Morpher Modifier, I have different states to have here. They can either be different objects or the same object with different states. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the first slot here, and then I will go to capture current state. But first of all, I'll go to edit poly here, and then, sorry, maybe we can hide this one for now. I'll go to Morpher, and then I'll click on capture current state, and I'll name it A. Now I'll go to the second one, and then I'll open this, and then I'm going to capture the current state, and I'll name it B. Now, if I increase this state, or let's say if I increase A, it will take me to A, okay, and if I decrease it, I'll go back to B. But I don't want this to be done for the whole thing. Okay, I wanted to cover specific parts of the object that I have. So to do this, I'll go under the Morpher modifier and I will add a volume select. This volume select modifier will select a shape that you have, any shape that you have, and it will take the selection of the vertices or the polygons or any other thing that you want to select from this volume. In this case, maybe I will go and create a sphere. I will use AutoGrid to make sure it's on top here. So let's say somewhere here. So this is my sphere. You can keep it at any size you want. Maybe I'll have another one here. And then another one here. I'm just taking the high points of the object. Okay. Now for these spheres, I don't want them to appear in the render. I just want to use them on this object. So I will right click on these spheres and I'll go to Object Properties. From this window, I will click on, or I will uncheck renderable. And this way they will not appear in render. And for the sake of seeing everything better, I'll make them see-through. So they will appear like this. Now going back to our Morpher modifier, I'll go to Modify. In the volume select here, I will go and select the first object. How to use this volume select modifier? I will go to parameters and then I will go to select by and I will select mesh object. So I don't want a box or a sphere or a cylinder that I will create. I want mesh object that is already there, which is this one. Now I've selected this, but what I want this to select exactly, I want it to select vertices. So I'll select vertex. You'll see it will go to the vertex, the vertices of the object. And I will open soft selection and increase the fall off as much as I want. Now, if you want to see the final result as you are working, you can make sure that you click here on show end result. Now, of course, nothing is happening because I did not change the settings of Morpher. So I'll go to Morpher and I will increase number A, or the first status. I'll increase the percentage, and as you can see, it's increasing for the sphere. Now you can go back to the volume select, you can play around with the fall off as much as you want. What about the other spheres? I'll go and then add another volume select. And for this one, again, I want to select vertices, so vertex, and I want to add them to the previous one. I don't want to just replace the volume select that I've already created. No, I want to add to the selection. So I'll click on add, and then I will go to mesh object and select my second sphere. And then again, I'll go to use soft selection and increase the fall off to cover the area that I want to cover. Again, I'll add another volume select, and always all the volume selects are under this Morpher modifier. I'll go to vertex, add, mesh object, and I'll select this object, and then soft selection to make it gradual, and then I'll increase the fall off as much as I want. For the last one, again, volume select modifier is added, vertex, add, and then mesh object, select the sphere, and then I'll go to use soft selection and increase it this way. Now that is done, I have them this way. This is my final result. If you wanted to affect more area, you can always go back to the volume select and you can increase your fall off as much as you want. And for each one, you can do the same thing. So maybe I'll increase this one as well. And then I'll go for this, increase it a little bit more. And then for this one, again, a little bit more. So this is the final result that I have. The spheres, as I said, they are not renderable, so I'll get this at the end. Now this object, again, you can add any modifiers you want to it. So maybe I can add shell modifier to get a bit of thickness. Maybe I can add, for example, turbo smooth if you want to use it, and you can increase the iteration here. So this is the final result, for example. If you would like to use any other modifier, you can. Maybe I'll use bend modifier and start bending this object. Maybe let's say in the y-axis and the x-axis, depending on what you prefer, to get the kind of shape that you want. Just be careful, as you can see, we have many vertices here, so this is a little bit heavy. Make sure that you are careful when you are working with such objects. So this is the first way of using Morpher, is by adding volume selects for the selections and various edit poly for the states that we have. Okay, the second type, or the second way to use Morpher, it's basically the same idea, but let me just delete all of this. Sorry, I'll go to the first one, shift to this one, and then click on delete. So now I have this first state that I already have here. Now I'll go to this one and I will copy it. So shift and copy. And maybe this time I will add, or I'll introduce another kind of movement as well. Not only open and close, but also up and down. So I'll create 2 copies to have 3 final shapes. The basic shape that I'm going to use and I'm going to add Morpher on, I'll go to borders. And as we said, borders are these openings around all the openings that I have, these edges around the openings. Alt to remove the selection from the outer edge. So I'll just keep the inner ones selected. And now I'll go to scale and scale everything down to get the closed shape. Okay, so this is the basic one. This is the first one. For the second one, I will keep it open this way. And then for the third one, instead of closing everything, let me just delete these. I don't need them anymore. I'll copy this one. Okay, so this is my base. This is the open shape. And for this, I'll go again to the borders and I'll move them either up or down to get some kind of movement. Let's say I'll take them a little bit. So I have something like this. So I want to merge all of these three into one. I'll go to the first one and then I will add Morpher Modifier and then I will start adding the other two objects. This time, and instead of adding these states as two different modifiers or edit poly modifiers and then capturing each state, no, I'll add them as separate objects. So I'm not going to go to capture current state, but I'll go to pick object from scene. For the first one, I will select, for example, this one, the opening. And then for the second one, again, I'm still selecting this object. I am in the Morpher modifier. I'll go to the second one, pick object from scene, and I'll select the second object. So now I've selected these two objects. I've already added them here. You can delete them now if you want. No need for this. They are already here. The next step is for me to select what I want to select here in Edit Poly. So I'll go to Edit Poly, I'll go to Vertex. Again, I will have soft selection open and I'll go and select what I want. So maybe I can select something like this. What I want to do is I'll go back to Morpher and again we have these percentages so I can increase this to show the first shape and then increase this to get the second shape. Okay, so you can play around with it to get whatever kind of shape you want. Okay, so I'll do this again. And for the selection, instead of selecting this way, you can select in any other way using these selection tools. So maybe I'll go for the spray. I have my show end result on so I can see what is happening. And let's say I'll select something like this, control, maybe I can even have less fall off. So something like this, maybe here. I'm still clicking on my mouse and then maybe something like this. So now when I go back to Morpher, this is the kind of effect that I'm getting. Okay, so this is basically the second way. The first one is that you are going to add or you will do all the modifiers here as modifiers, all the states as modifier, and then for the second one you will have them as separate objects and that you can add in here. Again, you can play around with the size, you can play around with the percentage depending on what you prefer, and then you will get this kind of final result. I hope that this tutorial is clear, and if you have any questions, always feel free to ask in the lecture or on Teams. Thank you for listening and good luck.